The show of solidarity between China and Russia as the leaders meet in Uzbekistan. Xi Jinping tells Vladimir Putin that Beijing will work with Moscow to assume the role of great powers. And for more on the talks between President Xi and Biden, Temur Umarov, a fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, he joins us live. Now, he is also an expert on China and Central Asia. Now, Temur, Chinese President Xi Jinping has told his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin on Thursday that Beijing was willing to work with Moscow as great powers. Does this signal that Beijing fully backs Russia's war in Ukraine?
I don't see it as a full support from Beijing to what Moscow is doing right now in Ukraine. In my view, this is one of those very vague statements that will show to Russia that China supports it only on one page of this conflict that is going on right now, that is broader confrontation between Russia, between China and the West. But other than that, I don't think that China would be ready to support Russia militarily or even economically.
As you've mentioned, so far China hasn't stepped up supplying Russia with weapons, which, Moscow appears to desperately need. So essentially it shows that there are clearly limits about what these, so-called allies are prepared to do.
Yes, definitely. One thing that we should keep in mind about Sino-Russian relationship is that it's not an alliance, and there are certain limits to this partnership. First of all, China doesn't recognize Donetsk or Lugansk as independent states, and it was said out loud. China also doesn't support Russia in questions of, Crimea. Doesn't seem from China, as a part of Russia. At the same time, Russia also doesn't support China on the full scale in South China Sea or with China's territorial conflicts with India. So there are certain limits. And right now, when Russia is in its weakest position, I'm not sure that China would be ready to broaden the limits of this relationship.
But at the same time, President Xi did say that, China wants to inject stability and positive energy into a chaotic world. How should we read into this?
My reading is that, again, those statements are made to show that China finds consensus only in one thing when it comes to the war in Ukraine, that is seen as this, from Chinese point of view, world order led by the US or collectively by the West is not fair, and it should be changed. And it actually is very pragmatic take from Chinese point of view, because China right now also is at the worst relationship that it had with the US, and China wants to have countries that will agree on that issue, and China wouldn't feel so kind of lonely in this.
Now, we've heard before that, Xi and Putin, they've mentioned that they have this desire to create a new era. So do you think if the two authoritarian powers have actually come any closer to shaping this new world order that's in their favor?
I'm not sure that something like this is going to happen in the nearest future. Although, China is becoming bigger and more powerful, Russia is able to show that, it can go and take radical steps in this direction. But nor China nor Russia do not show working alternative to the, global order. They point out to the problems, but there are no solutions coming from both of these authoritarian states.
Oh, we'll leave things as that. Thanks very much for your time, Temur Umarov, a fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace.